Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Alpha Bolt's presentation and overview of a path to a successful ERP implementation. My name is Olivia Johnston, and I'm an account executive here at Alpha Bolt. I'm joined by Tayeb Ali, our VP of Consulting Services, and Ilya Budimir, our NetSuite Practice Manager, who will also be walking you through our session today. So before we jump in, I want to go over a quick agenda. So we're going to start by going over a little bit about who we are here at Alpha Bolt. Then we will be discussing the top 6 reasons why implementations fail. Then we'll be introducing Alpha Bolt's unique methodology, Bold Route. We're going to have some time for Q&A as well as next steps at the end. And I also want to quickly mention that we're going to be presenting a free engagement offer that your business will definitely want to take advantage of. So make sure you stick around for that. We promise it'll be worth your time. All right, so let's get started. So who is Alpha Bolt? So we are a NetSuite solution provider with team members that are skilled in a variety of disciplines. We specialize in working with customers that are specifically in the manufacturing, construction, and wholesale distribution space. And we have a lot of experience in various compliances and the systems and processes that are related to those. So we also have industry-focused solutions that we've built that our customers take advantage of. In addition to that, we have a few things that set us apart. We proudly refer to ourselves as bold enthusiasts, which means we are passionate about what we do. We as a team are dedicated to your success as a customer and are committed to leveraging our methodology to help your business grow. We're creating a bold community, which not only includes our partnerships with NetSuite and Microsoft, but also a place where you as a customer can collaborate with other customers as well. And by leveraging this, your organization can look to us to see what the latest greatest tips and tricks are in your industry, as well as best practices. We're also not just an ERP shop, so we have practices that focus on custom development, QA, and integration projects. And for customers who are already leveraging a solution and are looking to better optimize it, we offer trainings and ongoing support that are tailored specifically to your business. So with that being said, I'm going to now hand it over to Ilya. But before I do, I just want to mention that we're going to be pausing for brief Q&As throughout the session. So at any point during the presentation, if you have any questions, there is a chat box. You'll see you can submit those there, and then we'll be going over those. And then if you have any at the end, then we'll make sure to follow up with you on those as well. So I will hand it over to Ilya.
Thank you so much, Olivia. Thank you for joining. So before we begin, I want to spend some time and talk about the concepts that we'll be covering during the webinar. So as the agenda says here, and on the earlier slides as well, this is a picturesque, as you can see, this is a picturesque road, and we will first spend some time discussing what you need to watch out for. So those top 6 reasons why implementations fail. And then I will spend some time talking about our methodology called Bold Route. First, let's define a failed implementation. In our opinion, a failed ERP implementation can be anything from exceeding the timeline or the budget of the project to bankruptcy caused by a troubled implementation. So you can see the definition of the failure is really broad. Fundamentally, if an ERP software does not meet set expectations, it is considered a failure. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. I will show you some statistics related to failed implementations. So according to customer surveys across various industries, 28% of all ERP implementations fail. 75% of all implementations exceed budget. 15% of all ERP projects are completed without any customization. As you can see, the number is very low. Lastly, according to these surveys, 50% of companies are unhappy with their ERP vendor. So the numbers do not look good. But remember, it doesn't have to be this way for you. So what can go wrong? So over the years, we learned that there are 6 major reasons why ERP implementations fail. So I'm listing these issues here on the slide. So the first reason that we'll talk about today is a poor definition of the implementation goals. The second is miscommunication, and this is probably the most important point of the entire presentation. As if this is not the most common problem in everyday life anyways. So the third reason is the lack of management commitment to the project. Next reason relates to the poorly formed project teams, both on the client's and the solution provider side. The fifth reason they may delay and negatively affect the end result of the implementation is the customization. And lastly, the implementation can also fail because of the inadequate training. All right, so let's look at the first one. Many organizations turn to ERP and expect it to solve all of their business problems. Unfortunately, they don't take enough time to define what they're trying to accomplish and how they will measure their success. Also, the project timeline may not be realistic. This can, in effect, put a serious stress on the project and cause delays or even worse, project failure. I have one example where a customer wanted to implement an ERP with four integrations and 40 users in only 2 months. That's an example of a poorly defined implementation goal, not understanding, what's realistic and what isn't. I have another example where a customer wanted to migrate detailed transaction history for 3 years from their legacy system into their ERP in 2 weeks. Another unrealistic goal. All right, so let's move on to resolution, okay? How can this be remedied? First, we need to identify KPIs, or the client needs to identify KPIs. You as our client, you will need to interview your staff, get a sense of major pain points and how long on average it takes to complete a particular task, let's say. Based on this data and the industry standards, identify the KPIs and goals that are meaningful to you, okay? This is extremely important and it will prepare you for the implementation and will give you some sort of a vision, okay? Next, set the realistic timeline. So in order to successfully complete the implementation, the timeline must be realistic. Enough time must be allotted for the customization, for UAT, training, etc. So work with your partners, with your solution providers to determine what that realistic timeline is. Also, finally, decide on the budget. You need to define a realistic budget. Make sure you consider the software, the licenses, the integrations, including the customizations, testing, training, and also, very important, post-implementation support. All right, I'll move on to miscommunication, and then I'll stop for a second to ask to give you a chance to ask some questions. So let's think of miscommunication as a lack of clarity related to the project or a concept definition. So this situation arises when, let's say, the key business process owners may have a hard time communicating exact needs to the solution provider. Even though they know what they currently have in their legacy system is inadequate, they instinctively try to mirror their processes in the new application. On the flip side, on the other side, the solution provider knows what NetSuite can do, but either don't know how to translate the customer's requirements or are unable to manage clients' expectations. So the key premise here is that NetSuite cannot be like a customer's legacy system. It will be better, but it will always be different. So this is not always easy to understand, and it may cause some frustration on both sides. I have some examples of miscommunication. I'm not sure if they're 100% on the mark, but I will list them here. So one example, simplest example that I can find is related to naming conventions and verbiage. Different people that work in different systems have different names for things. So when we talk about an invoice, depending on who's the audience, whether it's an AR or an AP clerk, an invoice can represent a different thing. Okay, so sometimes this can result in a confusion. Also, example number 2, word customization. You may mean different things to different people. People that operate in the legacy systems, customization may mean every time coding essentially, every time you need to redefine the user interface, you need to customize the interface, you need to customize the backend code, and it sounds to those people like it's a very complicated process. To me, customization means simple addition of a field, which for some people may mean a configuration. So you can see how there could be a miscommunication there and confusion as well. Okay. So how can we fix this? So there are several approaches that both the implementation teams can take, solution provider and implementation teams can take to repair the communication gap. Okay. First is trusting the implementation process. The client must trust the process and must give the process a chance. In many cases, solution providers have many years of experience implementing a particular application. This must be vetted by the client. But once the reference check is completed, the client must trust the solution provider. Ultimately, they must believe that the implementer knows how to best mold the system to suit the company's needs. Okay. Next, understanding the leading practices. The client must understand the leading practices in the industry. They need to understand the lingo. Either they'll get that information either from the solution provider or other companies or employees in the vertical, but they need to get that information. Then they need to connect, they need to compare the leading practices to their own internal practices. Okay? Then lastly, they have to identify functional gaps between what's provided by the system, the new system, and what is ultimately needed by the company. Okay. Now I'm going to stop a little bit here and give you a chance to ask some questions. Olivia, are there any questions in the queue?
Yes, we do have a few. So in terms of miscommunication, do RFPs help when it comes to communication as you just defined it?
Yes, actually they do. They help quite a bit. What the RFP is a set of requirements that are listed in, let's say, an Excel sheet, and they're sent out to solution providers. And that exercise of getting to those requirements is a very good exercise for every company. Companies can actually internally start thinking of what functional needs they have, what processes or what needs the system needs to address, and they can go into detail as to how certain processes work, how certain procedures are set up in detail, and then they can share that information with the solution provider. And that information will give a better insight to the solution provider as to what's needed to bridge that gap between what the customer needs and what the final product will be. Okay? So yes, RFPs are really, really, really important, and they're very useful in bridging this miscommunication.
Got it. Thank you.
Welcome.
And then, this is a good one. In terms of miscommunication, what about cultural or language barriers? NetSuite is becoming a global application and can involve people and organizations that operate overseas. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the ways companies can eliminate some of these barriers?
Yes, absolutely. So the first thing is diverse workforce on the solution provider's end. They need to have a very diverse team of people that worked abroad, of people speaking different languages. That is really important because increasingly businesses, especially in the ERP realm, is becoming very global. Continents, as I would like to say, are getting closer together. So it's really important that the solution provider has that diverse workforce. Secondly, video calls. They're very important. We're always talking to people that are very far from us. So if you can turn on that camera on your device and on your computer, it is really, really good to see a person, to see what they look like, to read their expressions visually. And lastly, I would think relationship with the consulting firms overseas is really important as well. And we operate in California. It's important for us to have allies or to have companies that we collaborate with abroad that are familiar with localization needs in the regions where they operate. We need to be able to collaborate with them to learn about these localization needs. That way we can help address local needs of remote companies operating abroad. That's all I have.
Okay, I think that's it for right now.
Thank you. All right, so let's move on to the next issue, management commitment. So lack of management commitment. The client's management must provide inadequate time to the project team for the execution of project-related tasks. It is understood that for a period, some employees may feel like they're doing two jobs. This is why it is important that the managers help them coordinate better their workload. Okay? Also, it's crucial that they are actively involved in the implementation. This is important because frequently they will be asked to make decisions that will affect their business processes and therefore the overall company's future. I had an implementation where key people were not participating in the project. I pushed as hard as I could, but I could not get any answer from key business process areas. The project went live, but it's impossible to say whether the project was successful and whether it addressed all business requirements and needs. The reason this happened was because the management was not involved and it did not provide the necessary leadership. Okay? So it was very difficult to reach people and get answers that we needed. All right, so let's see what can managers do better, or what managers can do better. So better planning. So this first point relates to the planning of the implementation it is advisable to plan the implementation when the team is less busy in an off-season. This way, there will be less stress on the individual employees, and they will have enough time to execute on project-related tasks. Second point relates to participation. The management must be involved in the implementation, at least on a high level. Their participation during the requirements gathering phase is a must, absolutely. It's advisable that they review every status report. And so through close participation, the management would be able to make better process-related decisions and better guide the team through their implementation experience. Okay. Next is support. So most implementations require some support from the executive team. When the employee gets overwhelmed, it's the manager's duty to step in and assist or redistribute and balance the workload across the team. And finally, the management must identify the champions within the organization that will lead the implementation. It's their job to empower these leaders and provide them with the tools that will help them succeed. Okay. Any questions from the chat panel?
Let's see here. So we do have one. So do you have any tips on how organizations managers can better engage with their employees to improve participation in a project? I've seen this one before myself.
Yeah, this is a sensitive subject, actually. Nobody wants to be told that they don't know what they're talking about. A solution to this problem can be found by involving the executives and project sponsors, working with them and the individual who's struggling with a specific functional area will ultimately produce some resolution. So this requires a lot of patience and over communication. So it requires us as a solution provider to reach out to the managers and the executives and the sponsors and then slowly work with the employee that's struggling so that employee can get better engaged.
Got it. Yeah, no, it totally does. And I just want to add from personal experience too, is I've seen that when companies involve their employees in teams from the beginning in terms of, when they're deciding on what processes they want to improve and, even before the project starts, it kind of increases that employee buy-in and makes them feel more included in the project itself. So just to add on to that.
Yeah.
And that's all we have for right now, Ilya. You can proceed.
Great. All right. Ineffective project teams. So this is kind of adding to the previous point. As the previous point illustrates, some situations where client project team may be ineffective, the composition of the team may be equally, if not more important. This is because ERP implementations are almost always very complex undertakings. They require a high level of industry-specific expertise on both sides, so the implementer and the client. Client's expertise and their commitment is crucial. Without the help of a designated SME, subject matter expert, on the client side, the project will likely fail. This is why it's very important that the entire company is aligned around the same goal by the executive team and that the right people manage relevant tasks. Okay. So let's see how we can resolve this. So how do we ensure that the right people are assigned to the right task? First, it's planning. as before, the management needs to pick champions for each functional area and ensure that these people have enough time and are motivated enough to participate in the project. The management also needs to gauge the strengths and weaknesses of each member of the team and fill the gaps with additional resources. As an example, expert consultants may need to be hired to assist with certain process areas that the members of the company's team are not familiar with. Okay. Interview the implementers. Okay. And this is more for the solution providers. Okay. So the companies that are about to hire the solution provider need to arrange an informal or semi-formal interviews with the members of the solution provider's team to ensure that they understand the subject matter that they will be advising the company on. It's important to get this dialed in before the implementation starts. Last but not the least, identify any cultural communication barriers that will result in an effective communication. So as you can see, communication kind of is very important in all of these. And it's important to identify these early in the implementation and discuss how these barriers can be overcome. Okay? All right, let's move on to customization. So the worst thing the company can do, in my opinion, is when they're trying to implement a new business and they're trying to re-engineer it. Or the worst thing the company can do is when they implement a new business software and they're trying to re-engineer it. Okay? When clients are introduced to a new system, they don't really know it. As mentioned in point 2, they're familiar with the old ways of doing business, so they instinctively try to restructure the system to mimic their legacy application. So the customization inferno commences, and it often doesn't end well. Okay, and what makes things worse, ironically, is that NetSuite is a platform that's very easy to configure and customize. So there's a natural tendency to build functionality and less patience to learn what exists natively in the system and adjust those processes slightly. Okay. Also, another very important thing is that companies, when they hire developers, they just hire developers. They don't understand that these developers need to have a business analyst experience. They need to be also ERP developers. Okay, so that's another mistake that customers will make. So how do you resolve this? Well, the first thing you do is you say no to customization. If you pick NetSuite, make sure that during your RFP phase or pre-sale, you list all possible functionality that an ERP can provide for your vertical, and perform a fit gap analysis with your sales rep or pre-sale consultant. This is the best way to make sure that the software meets your needs, and this way you will minimize the customization. So let's say the percentage should be around 80 to 90% of fit. Okay, if it's around 80 to 90%, you're good. That means that the software is right for you. Okay. Second thing that you need to think about is the second point. Don't be married to your old system. Okay. Think of new, better ways of accomplishing the same results. As an example, perhaps your old system had a different transactional flow that is not now supported in NetSuite. Evaluate both flows, and if the end result is the same, change your current process instead of changing the system. Okay? And finally, hire the right consultants. Hire consultants who respect this philosophy. Hire us. All right, we'll stop here. Are there any questions regarding the customization?
Thanks, Ilya. Let's see here. When does customization take place?
So do you mean when it do you mean when it takes place, or when does it make sense?
Oh, sorry, when it makes sense. Sorry, I read that wrong. I was
No,
like, oh, that's interesting.
no, it really depends when it takes place, but when it makes
Yeah.
sense is after you've completed your configuration, after you've completed the implementation, you're live, or at the last stages of the implementation, it makes sense to start talking about customization, because then you know really well what your needs are, because you've tried the system, you tested different things, you have your proof of concept, you've figured out what works out of the box, and where the system can no longer meet your needs, okay? And then once you've identified those areas, then you can actually do the customization, okay? And that's the right time to do the customization, almost at the end of the project, okay? But you need to do a lot of vetting before the implementation starts to ensure that 80-90% of the functionality that the system provides is already there out of the box. Okay?
Got it. Makes sense. And Ilya, do you know of an example of a customer that might need a customization that may not be fit by that 80%?
Yes, I mean most of our customers need some sort of a customization, but those customizations are very little.
Right.
So I would say on average for my projects, I would say, and most, I mean, the least of customizations that I've done for each of my customers is probably up to 20 hours. And the most I've done for my projects is probably, for my average project, is probably up to 60 to 70 hours. Okay, so 20 hours may include custom reports, may include little tweaks on a transaction level. So yeah, we can go as little as 20 hours all the way to 70, 80, 100 hours. And that's a good spot. That's a sweet spot. It's not too much. If you're putting in 300 hours of customization, that means that you've picked the wrong software.
Yeah, and another important thing to know too is that when you have a customization built in NetSuite, you don't have to worry about it breaking when your system does update. So
That's right.
that's something important to know too. As opposed to on-premise systems, you typically have to check those and pay additional costs to get those fixed as well. Okay, that's all we have. Go ahead.
Great, thanks. All right, moving on. So this is the last issue that I want to talk about, and that is the inadequate training. So the solution providers will typically be at fault here, okay? Whether the reason is an aggressive timeline or budgetary restrictions, the key users may not receive any training until the end of the implementation. In our opinion, 2 weeks is not enough, okay? So usually the way it works is 1 or 2 weeks will be dedicated towards the training, and then 3 to 4 weeks of that, 3 to 4 weeks will be additional testing, UAT. So we believe that based on our experience, this is not enough, okay? NetSuite implementations are joint implementations. So for best results, both clients and solution providers and their teams must work together. Both parties must execute on various tasks so that, number one, the solution provider can learn the client's processes. Number two, the client can get used to the system and become comfortable with its UI and the navigation. So the training towards the end of the project is there to reinforce their knowledge that was gained during the configuration phase of the project. So we believe that the customer should, from day one, be training on the system. Okay, that's our strong belief. Okay. So I have some customers that prefer me as a consultant to drive during configuration sessions. That is actually not my style. I like the customer to drive, okay? And the reason is when I'm driving, I know what to click and how to avoid errors, okay? When the customer is driving, they're actually creating errors, okay? Errors are popping up on the screen. And because of those errors, they're asking me questions. And the process of going through the questions and answers is building the knowledge, okay? It's improving the retention, and it's part of the learning process, right? So let's now talk about how we can resolve this, right? So as I mentioned earlier, start enabling early. Okay, get them involved as early as you can. When I say them, I mean the customer. Allow sufficient time for training and testing. Okay, that means you have to make sure that you set up your methodology in such a way where they will have enough time to train and test. Okay. And also, and if that means pushing the timeline, well, it means pushing the timeline. Okay. Provide good training material. Okay, that's very, very important as well. Okay. So guides, videos, those are very, very, very important. And obviously the customer needs to watch those videos. So this was the last point. Do I have any questions in the queue?
Hi, Leah. No, we don't have any questions.
All right, perfect. All right, so the truck has stopped around the Bold Route stop, and now I will be talking about our methodology. So this little slide gives you four steps in our methodology and phases of our methodology, I would say. So the first phase is called a blueprint phase, and this is where we sit down with the customer and we try to analyze their business in detail. We call them business process mapping sessions, where we go on site with the customer, and we dedicate usually 2 days with the entire team. There, we would like to be surrounded by the SMEs, subject matter experts, and the executives. And we try to overanalyze their business. We try to understand it, right? And then we go back to our office, and then we design a solution, right? And the milestone of this first phase is the business requirements document. This is a document, it's a 100-page document with details as to, that details our understanding of the company's business and how we can implement their processes in this new system. Okay? So in that document, we identify how we'll be implementing the system. We identify all the possible gaps and how we'll be able to bridge those gaps, whether these gaps are additional configurations, or whether they're third-party applications, or whether there's customizations. Okay, so those gaps are identified in the BRD. Once we also, at the end of this phase, create a project plan. Okay, and we send our new client a configuration session schedule. Okay, and that's when the orchestrate phase kicks in, and we start with configuration sessions, okay? Typically, configuration sessions last for a month, 4 weeks, and we try to have 3 sessions per week with key business process owners. And as mentioned, it's not just us configuring the system and you're looking at what we're doing. No, you're involved. We're doing this together. Okay, we're building our solution together. You're getting mini training. And then at the end of this process, we dedicate 1 week for business process review. So everything that we configure, we run through it one more time to make sure that everything works as designed. Okay? Then we create a script, a training script or a UAT script that will be used during our training. And then we train the customer. We move on to the next phase of the project, and it's called a lead phase, where we sit down with you, the client, and we train you on, based on the script that we prepare, we train you on everything that we did. So there we don't sit only with the stakeholders or the SMEs, but we'll also train the regular users. Or sometimes we train the trainer and then the trainer trains the users. And we have that approach as well. And we didn't allot enough time for UAT. Okay, based on the script, we'll let you test the system and break it. Okay? Where actually you're trying to break it. As you're doing the UAT, we're helping you fix any problems, and we fix those problems on the fly. During that phase, we also do data migration as well. And then deliver is the deployment. So deployment is the deliver phase. Usually we have a week or so for go live activity, where we transfer things from, let's say, a sandbox environment to production. We load all the pertinent master data and all the historic data as well. And now the system is delivered, deployed, and we provide on-site support. Okay, and also we provide post-go live support as well. All right, so that's our methodology. I hope it's clear. Any questions from the panel? Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. No, we don't have any questions. Thank you.
All right, so if there are no more questions, I will hand this over to you so that you can wrap up the presentation. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Ilya. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So here are some of the customers that we've had the privilege to work with on a daily basis. You might recognize a few of these names. They're all across different industries, different company sizes. So, and then also what we'd like to share is just a personal testimonial from Suzanne Dasmalchi, who's a customer that we've been working with for years. So if you're looking for customer support or believe you may need assistance with integration projects, we hope this really helps speak to our capabilities in those areas. And then I also want to show you a specific testimonial from Lori with ITG Brands. ITG Brands is a customer that needed a lot of detailed configuration, so that kind of relates back to the customization slide when they were implementing NetSuite. So if you have very complex requirements and you want to make sure that everything's configured properly, not just for your business today, but also as it grows and changes in the future. So we can absolutely help you with that. All right, next slide, please. So I want to know if we have any additional questions. I don't see any right now. If you do have some, you can continue to type them in the chat box, but we can go to the next slide. All right, so what's next? So this stairway is a representation of how we see our relationship with you as a customer. So our goal is to achieve a long-lasting connection with your organization, and we feel, based on our experience, that we can get there by spending the time to really learn about your company and help you overcome your business challenges through technology. So The first step here is a business process mapping or assessment meeting. So this is where we spend some time with you and your team on site, and we map out all of your key business processes and also understand the systems that you're using. And then the second step is, after gaining that solid understanding of your operations, we can help you implement and improve your processes in NetSuite. So whether you're not on NetSuite or you're already running it, we can just help you at least optimize it and make it run smoother and make sure that you're using best practices in doing so. So then, in addition to that, we want to be your trusted advisor when it comes to enhancing NetSuite, any sort of integrations with external systems or exploring solutions that we both feel are best for your business. So that's something that we really take pride in as well. And then the last step is our long-term partnership. So we want to make sure that we support you in the future. We're not going anywhere. Your project team that you get from the beginning is going to be your point of contact, and we really like to make sure that we have our customers on the long-term basis. So what do we have to offer? So what we want to do is, we are offering a free business assessment, and that goes back to that step 1 that I had mentioned before. And what this entails is us meeting either on site, or it could be virtually as well, where we're meeting with your stakeholders, and that includes accounting, operations, warehouse, sales, basically your entire business. And then we're going to review your systems and existing technology, and that includes any integrations. And also, I want to mention, if you're on-premise or, doesn't matter what it is. And then with that, we're going to document all of our findings and then provide you with essentially a blueprint of your company, as well as a wish list of things that we determine that you'd like to see improved. And then with that, we also include our recommendations. So irrespective of what solution you're on, or if you're already on NetSuite, this is something that's very helpful. You have this document to always refer back to, and it's very comprehensive, and we've seen our customers really value that. And then in addition to that, if you do want to move forward with NetSuite, then we would provide you with an estimated cost for implementation. And this is part of our implementation process anyway, so this is something that you'll be able to have and engage, as well as prioritize in terms of what needs to be tackled first and what your timeline needs to be. So you can prepare and plan your teams accordingly. So it's really, now we're in 2020, it's time to ask, or almost in 2020, but it's a good time to ask yourself, is it time to start planning for how we can improve our systems? Do we want to know what best practices are today in our industries? Or, if you want to understand, where you can improve, even if it's on a small level, this is something that you absolutely want to take us up on. This is normally a $1,000 paid engagement, but we want to offer it to you for free. So what we're going to do is, we'll be following up with each of you individually and seeing if you're interested. And then in addition to that, seeing if you have any other questions. And then you'll also be able to get a copy of this webinar as well as the presentation deck. So yeah, that's pretty much it for today. Thank you again, Ilya. Really appreciate you going through this presentation, and hope you all have a great day.